It's going to say that we're live. We're not live. We're actually just recording it. So that's just how it is on this site. So no pressure on your live takes.
No worries.
Welcome to the Double Digit Hockey. I am your host, John Easthope. Of course, you are here on ASTV Productions with me. Thank you so much for making me a part of your third.
Can't hear you. As soon as you started talking, the mute symbol came up on your screen, and I couldn't hear you.
Sorry about that, Kevin. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's sort of in and out a little bit.
Okay. My apologies this morning. That's
Stuff happens.
crazy internet. Don't like it. Technology is great when it works. When it doesn't work, it's the most infuriating thing on this planet.
I can hear you. I can hear you really good now, but your movements and your voice aren't lined up. But that's okay.
That's okay. Well, it'll even itself out. Right. All right. I'm going to restart here. Just give me 2 seconds.
All good.
And hello there, and welcome to the Double Digit Hockey Show. I am your host, John Easthope. I thank you for making me a part of your Thursday. Of course, we are here on ATV Productions. I'm going to thank you for joining me today. I got a great show lined up today. I'm very excited for this guest, very excited for this conversation. He is the executive director for Heroes Hockey, an integral part of the program and from the ground up. He's been there from the beginning. Interesting story how he got involved with Heroes Hockey, and also just named the Willie O'Ree Community Hero Award winner. Kevin Hodgson of Heroes Hockey joins me. How are you, Kevin?
I'm fantastic, John. Great to talk to you.
Thanks so much for making me a part of your day and carving out some time for me. First off, you've done a lot of media over the last little while here, so I thank you for allowing me to be part of that queue. And congratulations on the prestigious honor of the Willie O'Ree Community Award.
Yeah, I guess I'm getting my 15 minutes of fame, and I think I'm at minute 14. So great to talk to you. I think winning an award like this comes with the responsibility to talk about what it means and Willie O'Ree's legacy. And Willie did a lot for a lot of people that back in the 50s when he was playing and breaking the color barrier. I don't think he had any idea the impact was still going to be felt all these years later. And to have my name attached to anything with his name on it is a real honor and a privilege for me, especially since I've had the chance to get to know him over the years. It makes it that much more special.
I've heard some of your interviews on the radio waves, and you talked about how you have a friendship with Willie O'Ree. Talk about how cool that is that you're attached to his name like that way, and now also you're attached to him via this award.
Yeah, I first met Willie in 2006, 2007, I think it was, in Buffalo. And, when you get to know him, you spend time with him, you have dinner, you do all these sorts of things. Like there's the stories that everybody knows in his movie and in his book and all that kind of stuff. But when you get to know him, you hear sort of the story behind the story, or you hear how it felt to experience that stuff, but you also get to hear the stuff that was really impactful and powerful and positive for him. He told a story one time of walking into a restaurant with his Bruins teammates, and it's a restaurant that his teammate always liked going to. And the restaurant owner said, well, you all can come in, but he can't. So his teammates all said, well, then we're not coming in. And they all went and found somewhere else to eat. Like lots of people were there for him. And I think people like us that run programs like ours and have got to know him, that he's been willing to share sort of his life with, we have a responsibility to be there for him too. And so, I really see us as carrying his legacy forward. He entrusts, there's lots of programs like ours throughout the United States and ourselves up here in Canada, and he entrusts us with his name and his legacy. And that's an incredible responsibility, but one that we're really proud to take on. And, I'm not big on awards and recognition. That's not what I'm looking for, but something special like this, when it's got his name attached, and when you know what hockey's meant to him and the impact he's had on it, how can you not feel humbled to even be in that conversation?
Yeah, absolutely. That's well said. Couldn't imagine what it feels like to have that prestigious thing and to be attached to him so much like that. Let's talk about how you got started here. You never really signed up personally for this. I heard your story on the Fan 960 about how you were told. Tell us that story about how you got involved with Heroes Hockey.
Yeah, so social work was my background. I started working in the helping profession in the mid to late 90s, and by the time 2006 rolled around, and Norm Flynn, who founded Heroes, was looking to bring the program to Calgary, where I live. And by that point, I had started I'd moved up to managerial roles in the helping profession and was really detached from the impact you could have on the community, but the needs of the community, and really was just kind of pushing paper and pushing processes and that sort of thing. It wasn't really loving what I was doing, but she had gone to this meeting where Norm was presenting to a bunch of community organizations around this Heroes thing that he had been doing in Vancouver and Toronto. He wanted to bring it to Calgary, and my colleague Nancy was at that meeting and heard him talking and heard his passion and realized that this was something really cool. And so she came back and started talking about this thing really passionately as well. And I said, man, that sounds really cool. That sounds like something I could get behind. And she said, I'm glad you said that because I signed you up to volunteer. So I said to her, well, I'll do it as long as you do it with me. She had never skated before. Neither of her kids had ever played hockey. She was so far detached from the hockey world, but she got the impact that this could have on kids. And so she and I were the first volunteers here in Calgary and got the program off the ground. And it just kind of went from there. And I very quickly became blood, sweat, and tears volunteer. Like I was all in, and because I just immediately saw the impact that this was having, and none of it was on the ice. We weren't producing elite hockey players. We weren't, and nobody wanted to. That wasn't the objective. And so in 2012, they asked me if I would leave what I was doing and come on and be the executive director. And it was the easiest decision that I've ever made in my entire life. It really truly was my dream job and my calling found me. I was one of those lucky people that it found me, and haven't looked back since then. And it's been just an absolute joy and privilege. I haven't had a bad day at work since I started that job in 2012. And, I got lots and lots of years left ahead of me with this organization as well. So
I love when I first heard it on Stan 960, laughing in my work truck. Couldn't help it. That's a great story. And I love the vision that you guys started there in Calgary. A little bit about Norm and Norm's vision. Tell us a little about Norm for those of us who aren't familiar with him and his work. And what is his vision for Heroes Hockey out there?
Yeah, so he actually grew up in Winnipeg, and he was a bit of a latecomer to hockey, and really it was people in the community got him connected in the game of hockey when he was about 10 or 11 years old on the outdoor rinks, and just kind of said, you gotta, he calls himself the first Heroes kid, because he had to choose. He had to make a decision. Am I going to stay on the pathway I'm on, or am I going to choose a different pathway? And he chose hockey, and by the time he was 16, he was playing in the Western Hockey League, against the Sutters and sort of that era. He had 2 stints with the Lethbridge Broncos. Looks back very finely on his time in Lethbridge.
Yeah.
I think that's an area that matters to you, John. And he actually had one season where he played both for the Broncos and the Tabor Golden Suns. And he would get called up and sent down every day. He played something like 111 games that season. And his game involved being punched in the face. So those were a hard 111 games, but he wasn't a permanent member of either team, so he didn't have a billet. So he lived in the arena in both cities, right? He wasn't living with a family or anything like that. But anyways, he played out his Western Hockey League career, and it gave him an opportunity to go to university for free and play hockey there. And so he did that at the University of Winnipeg, and he left that with an idea that he was going to do for one kid what somebody had done for him. And then life took him out to Vancouver, and he kind of kept talking about this, and I'm not telling stories out of turn. He kept talking about it, and finally a couple of people said, it's time to do it or stop talking about it because you've talked about it long enough. And so they put together a summer camp in Vancouver, just making sure that kids who couldn't afford to play hockey had something to do for a week in Vancouver in the downtown east side. And everybody had a great time. It was a ton of fun. Next summer comes around, the exact same kid showed up again, and he realized this isn't about the hockey. There's something else at play here. And it just launched. It turned into a year-round program that then went to Toronto in 2005, and then Calgary was its third city and third program in 2006 when I got involved. And fast forward to 2021, this fall we're going to have 31 teams on the ice in 12 cities across Canada. Nice. Plus we do a summer program in Belfast, Northern Ireland. So it's his dream of supporting one kid. We're going to hit 15,000 kids this year. So I'd say mission accomplished.
Nice. That is incredible. That's incredible how it comes from something so little and a vision, and someone makes it grow as much as it has. It's amazing. What is the hope for Hero Hockey going forward here? I know the pandemic is hard, buddy, but as we come out of this pandemic, what are the hopes for Heroes Hockey and the goal that you guys have in place?
So first and foremost, we have zero interest in producing an NHL player or even producing a Western Hockey player. There's enough people in the hockey community trying to do that. They don't need our help, and quite frankly, that's not where we're going to measure our success. There are a lot of kids that the game has left behind for reasons that are beyond their control. Financial issues, social issues, color of their skin, the religion that they practice, that they're born with a disability, whatever that is. And the game of hockey, one of its failings is they've seen it as a character test. If you really want it, you'll find a way to adapt to the rigid structure where we are. And that's where hockey's dropped the ball. And we want to do something very different. We want to adapt the game to where the kids are at and bring it to where they are. And so we're trying to do our equivalent of putting the rink on the back of a truck and taking it to the kids. So for our players that finances are the barrier, we pick them up from school, we transport them to the rink, we feed them when they get there. Their gear is sitting there waiting for them. They're on the ice. They get their gear off. We store it again at the rink, and we drive them back home, and they come in every week. For our players that are living with disabilities and are living with families and all that, their families bring them, but we adapt the game completely to them. And really, we have 24 kids on the ice, and they work on what they want to work on. And, so it's really like 24 small area games. If a player wants to do laps for the full hour, that's their hockey experience. They can do laps for the whole hour. So, old school hockey people, look at our ice times. I mean, Don Cherry yelled at us one time because we weren't focusing on the fundamentals. That's not what we're there for. If it takes a kid 3 years to learn to do crossovers in our program, that's just fine, because what they're really there to learn is how to get back up every time you fall, how they learn to believe in themselves. I mean, I always say the most powerful thing in the world is seeing a kid has a reason to believe in themselves. We give them a chance to do something they never thought they'd be able to do, and they realize that anything's possible. You have to dream big. You have to have these huge dreams, because along the way, you're going to achieve small and medium-sized dreams. And that's what we need to do. We have to give them a place to do that. We have to give them a place to dream big. And really, from the day we meet them, they come in when they're 8, 9, 10 years old. We want to know what their dreams are, and we'll work right alongside them and knock down barriers. I mean, when I meet a kid when he's 10 years old, I'm already planning for financial support for university or vocational training. We've given $250,000 in bursaries to kids for vocational and post-secondary training that when we first meet them, they don't even think they're going to graduate high school. We're still in a generation where some kids in our program are the first to graduate high school. We're working with kids in some cases living in neighborhoods where they go home and they don't know whether there's going to be food in the fridge. Or kids living with physical and cognitive challenges that are just sort of left to the side, and the expectation is that somebody else will figure it out. Well, if we all wait for somebody else to figure it out, nobody's going to. And my feeling is, I've said it before, you would have heard me say it on media stuff. My only barriers to success in hockey were skill and work ethic. I had an absence of both when it came to hockey. But because it was easy for me, that means I have an obligation, but I also think an opportunity to make it easy for somebody that it's hard. And that's what we're doing. And no kid will ever leave our program saying, I wish you had cared more, I wish you had believed in me more, or I wish you had done a little bit more for me. That's not the way it works. And you know what, John, like I get the attention with this stuff, with this award, but with the 900 kids that are going to go on the ice this fall, it's 300 volunteers who are given their very best selves every week with these kids and are building relationships with them. I mean, our kids come in when they're 8, 9, and 10, and they stay as long as they want. And so that gives us a great opportunity to build relationships, get to know how to motivate them and inspire them, and make sure that, if their ice time is on a Thursday, we really want to impact their world Friday to Wednesday. The rink is just where we come back together to practice skills that they can take out of the rink. We don't need them to be high-level hockey players. If that's their dream, we'll help them achieve that if we can. But for most of our kids, they just want to be part of something. They want to be part of a community. And we have to provide a really inclusive, welcoming community where everybody's welcome. And that's what we're going to do and continue to do.
That's amazing. Get goosebumps hearing you explain the program and what it meant to do. I love what you said off the top there, where you're not trying to make NHL players. I don't remember where I heard it, but it was on one of your interviews. You talked about helping these kids achieve their dreams in other professions, and you've had guys and lawyers come through your program. Talk a little bit about that. I'm not looking for specific examples at all, but a little bit about how to achieve their actual dreams of whatever it is they want to become besides a hockey player, like a lawyer or whatever it is.
So I'm going to tell you a story about a kid named Juma in Edmonton. And he, in some senses and by some measures, is one of our greatest success stories, but he's also one of my most frustrating hockey stories. So he came to Canada when he was 8 or 9, a refugee. He was living in a refugee camp in Tanzania and showed up at our program, and very social kid, just wanted to be part of something, and he knew that hockey would give him a chance to be around peers and this sort of thing. And as soon as he got on the ice, he had a natural aptitude for it and a passion for it. But he also had a passion for building relationships with all the volunteers that really cared about this kid. He was a really easy kid to get behind. And you could just tell that whatever he wanted to do, it was possible, right? So he was in our program and kind of, was with us for a few years. And then he started talking to us about wanting to play organized hockey. And we said, not a problem if that's what you want to do. But his aunt, who had brought him to Canada, didn't have the financial means nor the transportation nor the time to do all of that. And so one of our volunteers stepped up and said, I'll take him to every practice, every game, whatever. And so his entrance into organized hockey was first-year Bantam. I guess they call it U15 now. Goes to tryouts. and he gets cut from Bantam AAA pretty late, gets cut from AA pretty late, so he's playing Community Division I, which your first year of organized hockey, and that's when you're jumping in. That's a pretty good place to jump in. And then the next year, he says, I really want to try and make AAA. I think I can do it. So he asked for our help. And, now we're talking a different financial obligation if he makes it, but we can't let finances be the barrier. And wouldn't you know it, the kid makes Bantam AAA, right? And but that's where a real tough situation came up. But I'll circle back to it after. Then the next year he goes into U16. They called it minor midget at the time, and I know we've moved away from that label. But he makes that team as well. But he couldn't afford, nor could we afford, to also put him in all the summer camps and and all this skill development stuff that's emerged and all this sort of monetizing of player development. So he started playing rugby. That's what he would do in the summer to stay in shape and all this kind of stuff. So he goes on to U18 midget his first year, and he's like the last cut from AAA. And he phones me, he says, well, I'm going to quit hockey. And I said, hang on, you make AAA, you make 1 year, you make it the next year, now you don't make it, you're going to bail. That's not how we do things. He goes, no, I have to make a choice. He goes, I got invited into Team Canada's rugby stream, and I can play that for a lot longer. And so we have this conversation, and it totally made sense. So anyways, he went on to play rugby, and he got to see the world, represent Canada. He got accepted into 3 different law schools this summer. He's chosen to go to one in the UK, which is a very prestigious school. And his goal, he wants to be an immigration lawyer and make it easier for kids to come back, or to come to Canada, come to other countries, and just be a support. And he's going to change the world. But when he made that first AAA team, we get, that's a little bit outside of our world. So he makes it. There's all this money we got to come up with, and we find ways to make that happen. But then the day before his first game, we get the word from a coach. Well, he's got, we wear Minnesota Wild colors. He's got to have Minnesota Wild helmet, pants, and gloves. And that makes sense. I get it, but we had just never thought of it, right? And so through a personal relationship, we reach out to Warrior and the Minnesota Wild, and they overnight, Zach Parise's gloves, Zach Parise's pants, and Zach Parise's helmet, right? And this was a few years ago, and Zach Parise was one of he was the marquee guy for the Wild. So Juma shows up at his next ice time with this stuff, and the coach says, "Oh no, we're a Bauer team. You're not going to play if you're wearing that." So we had to go spend $1,500 to put him in Bauer because this coach said, this is what we do. Well, the team went 2-38 that year. Okay, the equipment didn't do anything for them, but it's that mentality and this stuff that doesn't matter and is nonsense. And if we hadn't been able to solve that problem, because he had no financial resources to pull that off, it was one more thing that we had to spend money on. And then we found out later the coach was getting a kickback from the store. But all this but this is the stuff that hockey gets wrong, and that put up an absolutely artificial barrier for that kid that could have derailed all of that stuff for him, all because this coach who thought he knew better and placed importance on stuff that doesn't matter said Bauer was Warrior, whereas this kid's wearing NHL stuff. It was such nonsense to send it back to an NHL team and say your stuff's not good enough for this coach. Anyways, I could go on, but that shows the best and worst that this game can do, but this artificial barrier, and I know I'm oversimplifying it, but skin color is an artificial barrier. The religion that people follow, the neighborhood they live in, those are all artificial barriers that somebody else is putting up to get in the way, to not allow people to play. And it's absolutely unfair to the young people. It's unfair to marginalized communities. It's totally unnecessary. And we need to get rid of that. And there's no place for that. And the way we do that is by continuing to give kids opportunities, by continuing to embrace communities, and for organizations like ours who have had, led by people like me, have had it easy, to stand behind the people and beside the people who've had it hard and say this can't happen anymore. And quite frankly, if this game is going to grow, we need those marginalized communities, because the kids who look like me, there's not enough of them playing hockey to sustain this thing. Hockey is better with girls and with marginalized communities and visible minorities in it. We need it, and we got to make it easy. We got to get rid of those artificial barriers, because it's nonsense that those prevent kids from playing.
Incredibly well said there as well, Kevin. That I can't I can't enough. Talk about having the funds to help these kids, and how that is a barrier in and of itself as well. You guys aren't government funded. You guys are privately done. You go out there every day. I've heard you talk about it, how you knock on doors and ask for money. What's that process like for you, and how you guys go about fundraising money for your awesome program?
We will talk to anybody who will hear us. You get stuck in an elevator with me, you're going to hear about heroes. Like we've never received any government funding. It's all been private and corporate stuff, and it's really just finding people who believe in the intrinsic value of every single young person, regardless of their background. There's people who believe in the game and understand the impact that the sport can have, but there's also a lot of people who just believe in youth and understand that this is not a hockey program. This is a mentorship program built around hockey, and this sort of stuff. So we just tell our story everywhere that we can. Whether if we need $1,000, whether it's 1,000 people giving us $1 or one person giving us $1,000, it doesn't matter. Every donor matters, and this whole organization is myself and the founder, Norm, working from our kitchen tables. There is no fancy overhead, this kind of stuff. It's, our admin costs are sub 10%. I mean, the money people give us is going towards putting kids on the ice. I mean, the financial award that came with the Willie O'Ree Award, $25,000. I said that's putting kids on the ice. I mean, that's 3 new programs are going on the ice this fall, right? I mean, the rubber has to hit the road, and so it's just constantly going out and telling the story of our kids and talking about the impact that it has and showing the impact. And there's a lot of people who believe in the value of young people. There's a lot of people who believe that some of these racial and cultural barriers that exist have no place in our game, but also have no place in society. They want to get behind something. And, I think that we're also an example that really simple interventions can have meaningful outcomes. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. We just got to tweak it a little bit and make sure it's always round and pointed in the right direction. And so it's just a matter of keep talking to people, keep making sure that people understand who's being impacted, and being a voice for all of these marginalized young people who have been made to feel they don't belong. And quite frankly, some of them have been told they don't belong. And every single kid belongs in this game. This game belongs to every single person who wants to play it.
Well said again. I love the fact that this program paid for their efforts. Your staff is all volunteers. Tell us about that and how you can get involved with being a volunteer, and what do those volunteers mean to you that you give nothing but their time to these kids to have the opportunity to play hockey?
An award like this, I'm keenly aware that I'm just picking the award up for the 300 volunteers that give their everything all the time. The nice thing about a program like ours, you don't need to be a hockey guy or a hockey girl, have a hockey background. My belief is that a good human being can be taught to help kids in a hockey program. An old school hockey person who maybe isn't patient, isn't tolerant, isn't accepting, isn't inclusive, can't be taught to be those things. So really what we're looking for is a big heart, compassion, kindness, patience cost you nothing, and they don't take any more time. And quite frankly, I think it takes more time and effort to be miserable and exclude people than it takes to be welcoming and include people, right? Like kindness, it doesn't take much. And so we're looking for people who believe in that, who just want to give their very best selves every week and are excited that the kid they meet that's in grade 4 or 5, when they get invited to their high school grad many years later, that's the payoff, right? None of our volunteers want stuff. They don't ask for, fancy things or gifts or whatever. Whenever we try to give them anything like that, they say, give it to the kids, this kind of stuff. They're driven by seeing the kids be successful. And, we're in every NHL city across Canada, plus we're in Surrey, Victoria, Central Alberta, so the Red Deer, Black Falls area, Regina. We just need good people from those communities that want to be a part of it. And we want it to be reflective of the community. We want it to be reflective. We want to be the most inclusive environment as possible, because we want to make sure that our kids can see something in everybody that's around them. But the kids, the adults, whatever. We've had, simple things like we've had, married couples come in, and it's a chance for kids to see what a healthy relationship looks like for those that don't who have it at home. We ask our volunteers if they have a disagreement about what they should be doing on the ice, for example, talk that through in front of the kids and let the kids see how conflict gets resolved. We're very proud. We've had, a third of our volunteers have been female all the way along, and that's great, because a third of our participants have, in the history of our organization, have been female. 70% of our participants historically have been BIPOC. We want to make sure that we have volunteers who represent that, but also volunteers that stand beside each other and role model inclusion as well, and role model acceptance and kindness and all those sorts of things. So really, we're looking for good people. I got volunteers who have never put on skates, never gone on the ice, because there's always a kid who has a physical or emotional boo-boo that needs a little bit of time too. And so we need to have our own hockey moms and hockey grandpas and, all that kind of stuff. There's always a role for somebody. Organizations can always find a role for a good person, and we'll make sure we do that as well.
I thought I knew most of what Heroes entails, but hearing you describe that and how inclusive it is from your newest volunteer to your oldest member, that's incredible. That is amazing. That's an awesome program you're running there. I want to ask about one thing, though. When I first heard about Ireland, I thought that's such a weird place for a hockey program. Tell us more about how that came about and what it's like having a program over in Ireland.
It has been such an amazing learning experience for our organization. So that if not for COVID, this would have been our 14th summer over there. We're obviously, we're not able to get the kids on the ice over there this year, nor are us Canadians able to go over, but the program is still happening. But it started just a chance meeting where Norm ended up ran into the Irish ambassador to Canada in a hotel in Edmonton or something like that, and in line, and started talking about what we were doing. Like I said, we talk to anybody. You end up standing next to us somewhere, you're going to hear about Heroes. And he started talking about cross-border initiatives that the governments of Ireland and Northern Ireland were funding at the time to find neutral ways to bring kids from both sides together, because as we know, there's very historic conflicts and troubles that exist between, I think over here we call it the Protestant Catholic, it's unionist, loyalist, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. There's a very deep-rooted sense of conflict over there, and they wanted to give pathways to young people to sort of learn about each other, learn acceptance, learn tolerance, all these sorts of things. And so we said, we're in, let's do it. And so we go over there, we fly into Ireland, and we take 20 kids from communities around Ireland, and we go up to Belfast. And the reason we do it in Belfast is because there is no hockey rink in Ireland. So we go up to Belfast, where there's one rink called Dundonald, and we have 20 kids from Northern Ireland, and now some of them come from Scotland as well. And we use the game of hockey as a way to teach to allow these kids to learn about each other, learn about tolerance and acceptance and compassion. And I had a really profound moment years ago that shaped, something that's still in place for me today. We were over there, and one day I was with a group of kids and working on a project, and a IRA letter bomb went off about 150 yards from where we were. Right. And I was the most alarmed person. These kids, some of them just kept working, didn't even stop. And some of them went, oh, that sounded like a bomb. And I'm like, what is going on here? And there's a very significant police and military response right away. And these kids they just went about their business. They were educating me about what was going on. And they've grown up knowing how they're supposed to respond to that. So we got to the rink that afternoon for our ice time, and I'm standing on the sidelines. I hadn't gone on the ice yet because I was helping kids tie skates, whatever. And I'm watching, and there's a little guy on the ice who was a kid from Ireland, and he was struggling to get up on the ice. And a kid skated over to him and helped him up and helped him skate, and it was a kid from the north. And these are both kids from families with very strong feelings about sort of their family's identity and culture. And these kids were helping each other. And it really, you sit back and you watch it, and then it forced me when I came back to Canada to do a better job of watching what our kids were doing here. And I watched a couple years after that. I watched one of our young players who he's Indigenous and has his hair in a long braid, and he'd always tuck it into his equipment. And I would try to, I talked to him about his braid and why he was tucking it in and that sort of thing. And then one week I'm in the dressing room tying another kid skates, and he's in there, and a couple of kids. I think one of them was black and one was Asian, from South Asian community, and they started talking to him about his braid and encouraging him to keep it outside of his jersey, to be proud of it. And I'm sitting there sort of taking a long time tying this kid's skates in case I need to insert myself and assist these kids in having a conversation. They didn't need to. And that kid has never tucked his braid in.
Yeah.
And so those kinds of experiences have really hammered home. And I really, truly believe this, John, that the agents of change that are going to move hockey culture as in a really significant way are 7, 8, 9-year-old players right now. We need to give these kids the tools they need to be successful. We need to give them room to solve problems and support when they can't solve it on their own. We need to give them a voice. And then we have to have the courage and the humility to get out of the way when they're ready to take over, right? We can't hold them back. And so I really believe the person, that person who is going to get credit as being the change agent is 7 or 8 years old now, starting their hockey journey, and they don't even realize it. But kids have the ability, and kids in sport are fantastic, and oftentimes it's adults who ruin them. Willie has always said his stick and his skates never discriminate against him because of the color of his skin. It's human beings that do. It's the adults along the way that have told kids who don't belong and have treated them really terribly. It's adults along the way who have told people living with disabilities, you should sit in the stands. We gotta those adults gotta get out of the way, but adults like myself who don't think that also have to be prepared to get out of the way, because the agents of change are coming, and we have to give them the right way to do it.
That is a couple of stories you just shared with us there. I literally have goosebumps. That's an amazing story, how it got started in Ireland, and that story about the ponytail. That's incredible, and how much we learn from kids, which leads me to my next question. You are out there with these kids and giving them the opportunity. They're going to teach you some things back. So this program also teaches them how you learn from these kids over your number of years with Heroes Hockey.
Absolutely. I don't have shared life experience with the vast majority of our kids. I know that my life was far easier, right? I mean, I got to go to Notre Dame and play hockey in high school and all these sorts of things. So I don't have that shared experience. So my responsibility is to listen to their story, but not just listen so that I can tell it back to you, John, but it's to understand it, to ask them how it felt, and to make sure that I'm doing something to create and when I say I mean Heroes, that we're doing something to create an atmosphere and a community where that doesn't have to happen anymore, where they can, all of our kids across Canada wear the same jersey, the one that's just over my shoulder on this side here. For some of them, that's the first time they're part of something bigger than them, but they have to learn who everybody else is. They need to, little John in Regina has to know what little John in Toronto looks like and what his story is. And so COVID has given us a chance to do that through Zoom, bring all of our programs together and those sorts of things. But we have to make sure we listen to what their stories are, understand what they are, and then stand beside them as advocates, and quite frankly, we have to be willing to be a little bit disruptive too. But we also have to work alongside everybody. All the organizations, the other two finalists for those awards, for the Willie O'Ree Award, quite frankly, I thought I just had the best seat in the house to watch one of them win it. I had no thought whatsoever that I would win that award. But we have to stand beside them and work with them to make sure that we're doing something about this, because otherwise it's all just a good idea. And we've gotten to where we've got because everybody had good ideas and nobody's doing anything about it. There's too many people who want to do something about it. We have to just come together and band together and work together and recognize that, we're far greater as a total than we are on our own.
I know there's a lot that goes into Heroes hockey, but if someone were to ask you what the main message about Heroes hockey, what would you tell them? And then to finish off here, where can people go to find about how to volunteer and about how to maybe contribute funds if they're in that position to do so for you guys?
Sure. So there's a couple things we say to our kids. Once a hero, always a hero. So when you show up that first day, if we're in it for a penny, we're in it for a pound. We're there for your whole journey. And we've had kids who move from city to city. Lots of our players who are newcomers to Canada, the city they land in is not the city they live in. And so if they come to us in Montreal, come to us in Toronto, and then their family moves, they take their gear and their jersey with them. So once you're in sort of thing. I said to you before, so many of our kids have been told they don't belong in hockey. That won't happen when they're with us. Cassie Campbell has a great saying. It's really simple: believe you belong. And that is on the wall. But it's our responsibility to make sure the kids believe they belong. It's not their job. And I think the last piece is hockey's not a character test. Hockey's a place where character can be revealed, it can be grown, but it shouldn't be a character test. We need to stop this mindset that if a kid really wants to play, they'll ride the bus for an hour to practice, or they'll make it happen, or all this nonsense. I mean, those are stories that happen in movies, but that's not what happens in real life. So we have to bring the game to the kids that are most marginalized and most forgotten about. And we have to acknowledge hockey has either unintentionally in some cases, but intentionally in a lot of cases, chosen to forget about a lot of kids. And we need to stop doing that. That's unacceptable. And so we need to create places that kids are never forgotten. And society and things that are going on in the world sometimes force us to have really big gestures in response, but you can do a lot with a series of little gestures too. So, little things like, we, in all of our programs, we have players who are Muslim. Well, we learn the hard way. Don't have a pizza party during Ramadan because that leaves them out. They're sitting on the sidelines watching their other participants participate in something. Or, some of our players in superheroes live with disabilities and are hearing impaired. We got volunteers who are learning sign language. Learn hockey expressions in a language that your kid speaks. Don't expect, if you have a player, if you're a coach with a player on your team who English isn't their first language, don't expect them to learn. It's not their job to learn English hockey expressions to be successful. Why don't you start by learning a few expressions in their language? And you don't have to get it right, and they'll appreciate. It's all about genuine gestures, right? And those sorts of things. And so a whole series of small gestures can make sure that we're having a major impact alongside those big gestures that have to happen when the world tells us they need to happen. But sometimes the most significant thing you can do is stand beside somebody who feels like nobody's standing with them, right? And really stand beside them and tell them we're on the same team, we're all in this together. So if people want to find us, Heroes Hockey, HEROS, hockey.com is our website. They'll see there that we're grassroots and we don't spend a lot of money on fluff because our website is very old and very simple, but it gives you the information you need. My contact information's on there. As you can tell, I'll talk to anybody anytime that wants to hear about what we're doing. And we just need more people. No kid has ever paid to play in our program, so we need the financial resources, but we also need the horses who are going to help us get there. And there's no better place to volunteer, I'll tell you right now.
The test. The website is very easy to maneuver around. That's how I came across Kevin's email address and how I came across the information I needed for the show. Hey, Kevin, I appreciate the thoughts on Heroes Hockey. But before I let you go, you are a hockey fan as well. I've got to ask what you've seen in the playoffs so far and what you make of the Vegas versus Montreal series and the Lightning versus the Islanders series. Just your overall thoughts, what you've seen in the hockey. Well,
I watch the game a little differently now because we've had the opportunity to interact with so many NHL players and coaches and all that. And actually one of our ambassadors, Jay Bomeister, won the Stanley Cup, and he was kind enough to invite me to his day with the Stanley Cup. Yeah. And so you see what that means to these guys. And we've also had the great opportunity to interact with a number of the players from the PWHPA and NWHL. And so when you see the quality human beings these guys and girls are, you want to see them be successful. So now, I go into the playoffs and I go, okay, we got Curtis Lazar, Jake DeBrusk playing against and we got Matt Dumba playing. Like, I'm rooting for individuals to have success because I know what their team means to them and what they mean to their team. And when I was announced as a nominee for this award, the very first person I heard from was Barry Trotz, and when I won it was the very first person,
Wow.
And so, like, I want to see Barry Trotz win another Stanley Cup, and I want to see all of these guys that do. So I watch it differently, I guess. Peyton. So I'd love to see Peyton Krebs be around a Stanley Cup experience with the Golden Knights because he was on a Zoom call telling stories and singing songs with our kids. You know what I mean? So I see it a little bit differently, I guess. But what I can tell you is I've been exposed to so many exceptional – there's so many exceptional human beings at the high level of hockey, and I've seen so many of them on the men's and women's side do really powerful and impactful things. We have our favorite teams and all that, but there's great people there too. Mm-hmm. And so I'm pulling and rooting for great people, and I just want, call it a little naive, call it a little corny, but I want to see these great people have achieved their dreams too, right? I mean, I know what it would mean for those guys to win. Mm-hmm. So, whether it's the girls are going to go over and compete for the Olympic medal or whatever. So I may be the wrong guy to ask for hockey stuff that way, but I think all I will say is you see that these players are willing to put it all on the line for their team and for each other, and players from marginalized communities are willing to do that as well. They're willing to grind and push and fight to achieve their own dreams as well. So when you see those players at the highest level, the players that are being left behind by the game, we're leaving behind that drive and that jam and that persistence and that passion. So I'd say to people, just remember that there's a lot of people who have that same drive as well. And so I don't want to say I want everybody to win, but I want all these to achieve their dream and have that experience because I saw what it meant to somebody like Jay Bouwmeester. I want them to all have that. So sorry for the
you almost sound like a fantasy hockey manager. No, fine. It sounds like almost like a hockey fantasy manager there trying to make sure his team wins rather than the actual hockey teams in and of itself. Incredible story. I appreciate your time today, Kevin. I appreciate the program, what you've done, and for sharing that with us today. Good luck to Heroes Hockey in the future as it keeps going with its program, keeping tabs on. But I appreciate you joining me here on my show today.
It was an absolute pleasure, John, and I wish you the best of luck moving forward with Double Digit as well.
Thank you so much, and congratulations again on your Willie O'Ree Community Award win for Heroes Hockey. And that was Kevin Hodgson of Heroes Hockey that joined me here on the Double Digit Hockey Show. Appreciate his time today. And if you're looking for that information, that's Heroes, HEROS, hockey.com. You can find information there, and that's where you can find Kevin as well. Appreciate all of you tuning into another edition of the Double Digit Hockey Show. I will see you guys again next Thursday on the show. Thank you so much for joining me. Have yourself a great day.